Using 12037, you help AFA continue to fight for your family. So when you complete your CFC form, remember, AFA's number is 12037. And thank you for your help.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
This is American Family News. I'm Steve Jordahl. A gunman is dead following a deadly ambush on firefighters in a wooded mountain area in Idaho yesterday. Fox's Todd Pyro has the story.
Police confirming the suspect intentionally started a brush fire in order to lure first responders to a northern Idaho mountain community where the shooting began. 2 firefighters confirmed dead, while another is in stable condition after being released from surgery overnight. The suspected gunman, whose name has yet to be released, was found in a wooded area with a weapon nearby. The suspect was eventually found using cell phone location information after they noticed an active signal in the area. Still unclear how the suspect died, but police do believe he acted alone. Fellow first responders holding a procession for their bodies yesterday, saluting the victims as they passed by.
Police were forced to pick up the suspect's body and flee because the wildfire was still raging. The Senate will be back at 9 a.m. this morning to continue debate and to vote on amendments to President Donald Trump's tax cut and spending bill ahead of a final vote. Speaking on Fox and Friends First, Virginia Republican Congressman John McGuire says the bill will stimulate the American economy.
We don't like some of it, but the biggest thing is it's the biggest tax cut, or it prevents the biggest tax increase on the middle class in history.
The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office says the president's tax cut and spending will add over $3 trillion to the national debt. Democrats have criticized the bill for slashing food stamps, Medicaid, and other benefits programs. President Trump says he's not planning to extend a 90-day pause on tariffs on most nations beyond July 9th, when the negotiating period he said would expire. And his administration will notify countries that the trade penalties will take effect unless there are deals with the United States. Letters will start going out, quote, pretty soon before the approaching deadline, he says. And they will say, quote, congratulations. We're allowing you to shop in the United States of America. You're going to pay a 25% tariff, or 35, or 50, or 10%. SB 33 is now law in Texas. It prevents the state from providing financial assistance for out-of-state abortions. AFN's Bronson Woodruff reports.
The issue has been governments in Texas using taxpayer money to fund women leaving the state to get abortions in other states. This new law aims to stop it. Kimberlyn Schwartz is the Texas Right to Life Director of Media and Communication.
Yeah, it's sad that this policy was needed in the first place. That means that Christians, taxpayers, are being forced to participate in evil, in abortion, in violence. And so this policy was introduced to make sure that these cities stop doing that.
Texas Values reports Austin City Council approved $400,000 in the city budget for a fund that would provide money for air travel, hotels, and food as part of the effort to persuade women to go out of state for an abortion.
One of the groups that they already wrote a check to, Jane's Due Process, sends teenagers out of state for abortions with or without their parents' knowledge. And so that's the kind of evil that taxpayers are being forced to participate in. And again, that's a tragedy that Austin City Council has already given $100,000 total, but it has set aside $400,000 for abortion travel.
Schwartz said that over the last few years, there have been about 15,000 Texas women leaving the state for abortions. She said some of those trips were paid for by tax dollars. I'm Bronson Woodruff.
President Trump on Sunday pleaded for progress in ceasefire talks in the war in Gaza, calling for a deal that would halt the fighting in the 20-month-long conflict as Israel and Hamas appear to be inching closer to an agreement. An Israeli official said plans were being made for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to travel to Washington in the coming weeks, a sign there may be movement on a new deal. Meanwhile, Israeli settlers have attacked a military base in the so-called West Bank, setting fires, vandalizing vehicles, and clashing with soldiers. The unrest on Sunday followed recent settler violence and arrests by Israeli security forces. Last week, settlers entered a Palestinian town, setting property ablaze and firing guns. 3 Palestinians were killed after military intervention. Far-right Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir condemned Sunday's attack on soldiers, calling them a red line. For American Family News, I'm Steve Jordahl.
If we lose this cultural war, we're going to have a hedonistic, humanistic society.
Discover the story of the culture warrior Don Wildman and how he went head-to-head with Hollywood, Playboy, the homosexual agenda, and the Disney empire. The movement Don started paved the way for Christians to boldly stand for truth and righteousness in a hostile culture. Watch Culture Warrior today for free. Visit culturewarrior.movie.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thank you for joining us on this Monday, June the 30th, 2025. Again, as always, we appreciate you listening to American Family Radio. Well, joining me in studio is Fred Jackson. Good morning, Brother Fred.
Good to be here. Good to be back.
And Chris Woodward.
Hello.
And that's it, people. Just three of us. Just three of us. Be back from what? You took a little vacation last week?
Yeah, I was off last week and had a wonderful, blessed time at the Billy Graham Training Center, better known as the Cove, over there in Asheville, North Carolina. And just a wonderful week. We had professors from the Dallas Theological Seminary and spent a whole week studying the book of Romans.
The whole week?
Yeah. 16 different lectures over the course of the week.
16 lectures on one book of the Bible?
Yes. Yeah, it was wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, this is about the fourth year I've been going. I've spent a week studying the book of Daniel. Then another year was the book of Revelation. Another year was the book of
Now,
Genesis.
Alex McFarland has a week over there, doesn't he?
Yes, that's coming up in the middle of July. That
What's
was
his
being
topic?
advertised. I'm not. He's looking at a couple of books, and I just forget what that is. But Alex will be there. He's a very popular speaker there.
Mm-hmm.
Number of people I talked to said they really look forward to his time there.
Now, when you have 5 days, is that what it was?
Yeah, it opens up usually on a Sunday night with the worship service, and then you have they have two lectures Monday through Thursday. They have two lectures in the morning, and then another one in the evening. So that's Monday through Thursday, and then they do two more on Friday, and you're released around noon.
How many people were there?
300.
Okay.
At least 300. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we've been there. We went there like 4 or 5 years in a row, I think.
Yeah.
For a lot of our supporters. This would have been 10 years ago or something like
Yeah.
that. Now, let me ask you this. Did you go to downtown Asheville?
I did. In fact, the hotel I stayed in was in the downtown area. And I'll tell you, that hurricane damage it was September of last year.
Right. That's why I'm asking you this.
I would say 90% of the businesses, the restaurants, gas stations are still closed. In that, right down by the river.
Yeah.
Those are still, and some of them look like war zone. It really did. I mean, you could just imagine the damage created by the flooding. In fact, Samaritan's Purse, which is part of the Billy Graham organization, they had crews that were staying at the Cove while I was there, and they're now in the stage of helping people or rebuilding houses for people. They're doing a great ministry there. But, that downtown area, they explain what happened.
Because it's on hills.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I mean, you just go, how does this flood?
Yes.
I know I can understand how the lowland floods.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? But the downtown area is kind of elevated, isn't it?
Well, that's where the river runs through.
Okay.
And that's what flooded.
Okay.
And I used to go down walking. I'd take my walk in the mornings, and you could see some of these buildings, the mud from the river.
Really?
So we're talking 20, 30 feet above the river level. And I was just imagine what it must have been like when that flooding. They explain what happened a week before Hurricane Helene happened. There was a front that stalled over the area. That dumped about 8 inches of rain. And then several days later, the hurricane hit. That dumped 17 inches of rain in that area. And that's what caused the problem. So, yeah, the evidence is still there what this did.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, so what was give me one or two notes from your your time there in terms of what you learned about the book of Romans in the Bible?
Well, that God's plan will never be stopped. God's plan, He's sovereign, but He works through people who are flawed. Mm-hmm. And when you start,
why are you looking at me like that? I mean, we're all flawed.
Put a mirror in here; we're all there.
Okay.
But you talk about Abraham. He was flawed. He was told that he would have a son and that the world would be blessed through Abraham.
Right.
We have been blessed through Abraham. Right. But Abraham had a problem with his whole thing of waiting for the son of Isaac to be born. Mm-hmm. So there's the whole Hagar, Ishmael thing. So God works through imperfect people. I mean, He worked through Isaac. Jacob was a terrible character, but God worked through him, and he was the younger brother of Esau. And then on the story goes. When you think about David, when you think about Solomon, God has a plan, but that plan will not be stopped despite the fact that we're all flawed individuals.
Amen.
And then there's chapters 9, 10, 11 are terrific chapters that God still has a special place for the Jewish people, the chosen people, and that their disobedience through the years will not extinguish God's plan for them. And of course they talk about 1948 shocked the world when Israel became a nation again. Yeah. And it will be a nation when the Lord returns.
Amen.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm glad you had a wonderful time. Obviously you learned a lot, and good to have you home. And we have got a lot to talk about, lots happening in our country and in our world that's we need to pay attention to. Chris, what's our first story today?
We need to be praying for firefighters all across the country, but certainly those in Idaho. And I say that because in a story you can find on our website, afn.net, authorities say 2 firefighters were killed and another 2 badly injured after authorities say they were ambushed and shot while responding to a wildfire near Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. This happened over the weekend, and Kootenai County Sheriff Bob Morris said firefighters first responded to an early afternoon report of a brush fire at a place called Canfield Mountain. It's described as a popular and scenic hiking and biking area near the outskirts of town. But once the firefighters arrived, someone began shooting at them, and the sheriff says it was very clear that the fire was set to lure the firefighters into an ambush. We also have audio this morning of what's called radio traffic scanner stuff, where a firefighter says it looks like somebody has set this fire to bring us here and ambush us. Clip 1.
We need law enforcement up here immediately. We've got 2 unresponsive battalion chiefs, gunshot wounds, multiple gunshot wounds. 2 Coeur d'Alene firefighters are down. I'm pinned down behind Battalion 1's rig. It's clear to me that this fire was set intentionally to draw us in.
Now, there's also a quote from the sheriff who says, quote, "These firefighters did not have a chance." A very terrible situation over the weekend.
This was strange.
Yeah.
The story when this first popped up and I read about it. So this is in, I think,
Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Yeah, it's a very
beautiful area.
Well-known place in Idaho, and a lot of people I know have moved from Washington State and Oregon to live in Idaho, and that's a popular destination. But so have they caught? What happened to the individual? Do we know the story for why? So just to set this up or review here, somebody set a fire, and this is what the firefighters believe, right?
Yes.
They set a fire intentionally to get firefighters to come to the scene. They get to the scene, and then a sniper, it says, takes 2 of these guys out, as in kills them.
Yes.
Right. 2 others were injured, and then it occurs to them that something is wrong here.
Yeah.
And they stop the sending the firefighters in. Do we know what happened to the individual who shot them? And
that individual appears to be dead. And individuals have not released his name. I've looked at half a dozen news outlets.
Okay, so
today.
We don't know who the person was yet, and we don't know what his motive was.
Correct. All of that seems firm. It was an ambush. Fire was deliberately set to draw these firefighters to this location. This guy opens fire on them, kills 2 of the firefighters. Another one was seriously injured. And then in searching the area, they find the body of this man with a weapon
Did he
close
shoot
by.
himself?
That's
the implication?
That's the indication.
It seems to be.
Yes.
So I've never in my life heard of somebody having a vendetta against a firefighter. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we don't know the story yet. I'm sure it'll come out eventually, but you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So that's why it was so bizarre to read about this story. And
that's why I'm saying I think we need to pray for not only these firefighters, but all firefighters, because these guys and ladies see a lot of stuff on the job, and it does weigh on them. There are firefighters that unfortunately take their life over things they've dealt with on the job, or maybe had personal issues, and things like this. They weigh on you, so we do need to pray for these.
Is there a press conference scheduled for today?
I believe so.
They've had a couple already, just trying to explain to folks. I'm sure by now some of these officials know who this guy is, and I think by the end of the day we'll know a whole lot more.
Investigators do believe that the gunman did act alone. We believe that he was the only shooter that was on the mountain at that time, the sheriff said.
Yeah, according to Fox News, a SWAT team has located a deceased man and a nearby firearm hours after a sniper shot and killed 2 firefighters and injured another while they were battling a wildfire in Idaho. So maybe today we'll learn who this person was, and is there any what would be your motivation for doing something like this?
We can only speculate at this point. Maybe he didn't get a job as a firefighter, or it can be something happened to a family member. So we don't know.
We don't know yet. We don't know yet.
No.
All right, next story, Chris.
Now to the Big Beautiful Bill coverage as we
wait.
speak. Yes, this is going to be a big, beautiful
Big
segment.
Beautiful Bill. How did it ever get that name?
That's what
it's
Trump called Donald Trump.
That's a Trump. That's a Trump thing.
Trumpism.
But that is the actual name of the bill. When you look it up on Congress.gov, it does say Big Beautiful Bill.
Okay. The big.
Yes.
Just to irritate the Democrats.
I know, right?
Big Beautiful Bill.
Big Beautiful Bill.
Yeah. It is the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, otherwise known as H.R. 1.
Okay. So this is the legislation that's being, hashed out in the House and the Senate.
Yeah.
And then going to be sent to President Trump's desk.
Well, at some point, so the Senate is debating it now. And some senators have been concerned about the amount of spending involved. Some senators, like Tom Tillis, we'll get to that in a minute, have been concerned with what he views as Medicaid cuts, even though other Republicans say we're not cutting Medicaid, we're reforming it to help people on it and to make sure it's, costly. And it involves tax breaks, all kinds of stuff. According to Fox, the stuff that's in it as of right now, it would extend the Trump tax cuts, no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime. There is a tax break for seniors, people on Social Security. It would raise the child tax credit. It would also do things for people that need to write off their state and local taxes. There are some SNAP reforms in there, things like work requirements if you're going to be on what used to be called food stamps. There's border security money, Golden Dome funding, all kinds of things. Now, whatever the Senate approves today, if they've made one little change, it has to go back to the House because the House controls the purse strings. So anything that involves money, it has to go back to the House. Trump wants this done by July 4th. It would appear it's possible. Whether or not that's likely to happen, I can't tell you.
Now, I read where so is this latest version have the no taxes on tips?
Yes.
Was it Social Security?
Yes.
No taxes on tips would be for like waiters and people that get paid tips on top of their salary.
The big selling point for the Republicans is that it maintains the tax cuts that Trump put in place in 2017. They
were set to expire?
Yes.
They were set to expire. So that's been the big selling point. But Senator Tillis, he made claims publicly that the Medicaid, what he called the Medicaid cuts, would impact, for instance, rural hospitals, et cetera, et cetera. Now, what other Republicans are saying, as Chris pointed out, it's Medicaid reform. What the Republicans say, they want to put in place some litmus tests before you qualify for Medicaid. The big one being that you have to be, if you're able-bodied and able to work, we're not going to continue to give you Medicaid. The other thing that the Republicans are saying, we're going to find out who's in the country illegally, and these people are collecting Medicaid. We're going to stop that. So that's what the Republicans say about Medicaid. But the Democrats, and Senator Tillis seems to be agreeing with the Democrats, that, and I think they're using the figure 11 million people will be taken off of Medicaid. And Tillis and the Democrats are saying it's going to hurt grandma and it's going to hurt single moms, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Fox airs an ad just about every morning during Fox and Friends. Now, granted, Fox News Channel is a business. They take in a number of things and run ads. But even Fox News Channel runs an ad just about every morning of two people that are discussing her mother's Medicaid and the fact that she's going to lose her Medicaid if this big, beautiful bill passes. So, I mean, this is widely covered.
This is listen. It's hard not to get cynical about all this, right? I mean, it's politics in America, but this one takes the cake for me. This is Chuck Schumer I'm about to quote. What does Trump call him? Crying Chuck? Mm-hmm. Crying Chuck Schumer?
Among other things.
Yeah. But anyway, he's a Democrat leader in the Senate from New York. He said, quote, Republicans can use whatever budgetary gimmicks they want to try and make the math work on paper, but you can't paper over the real-life consequences of adding tens of trillions of dollars to the debt. End of quote. That's from, how does he even do that with a straight face?
I know.
The Democrats, now the Republicans have joined right in there with them, so to speak, over the years. But neither party has really done a lot to stop, certainly not the Democrats, stop the increase of the national debt. The Democrats never met an expenditure they didn't like.
Exactly.
Yes. So Republicans, you have some of them at least trying to put the brakes on wasteful spending, for example, but what they would call wasteful spending. But for Chuck Schumer to be the fiscal hawk in the Senate is quite amusing.
To your point, Elizabeth Warren, Senator Elizabeth Warren, posted on X over the weekend a little video.
What does Trump call her? I'm not saying I called her
Pocahontas.
that. Okay, Pocahontas. She's Pocahontas.
Yeah. So she posted on X over the weekend that she was going to the Senate to participate with her fellow Democrats in reading this bill, reading every page of this 945-page bill. She never had a problem voting for anything Barack Obama wanted, and I guarantee you.
Did she read the bill then?
Oh, no.
So what did they do? The Democrats read the bill. That's a good thing, I guess.
That is a good thing.
They read it out loud?
But she's a hypocrite because she voted for things like the Inflation Reduction Act, and I guarantee you she did not read every page of that.
I know.
Yeah.
So, all right. So what happens now? This goes. Where does this go?
Well, if it gets through the Senate, and they are debating it right now on the floor, all the networks have gone back.
I thought it did. 51-49.
That was a procedural vote on the weekend
to get it to this point.
Oh, I missed that. My bad, guys.
Yeah.
Those darn procedural points.
Yeah,
procedural votes. I didn't catch
confusing.
that.
It is confusing.
I was trying to watch C-SPAN wall to wall all weekend to see what happened. I missed that one.
Yes.
So
they voted over the weekend for today's debate, and if it gets through today's debate, it will pretty much be approved, and then it'll have to go back to the House for whatever changes.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
and that's what we're here for.
We'll be watching that closely. Be paying attention to that.
Yes.
But President Trump said he wants the bill on his desk by July the 4th.
Yes, because he wants to have a big, beautiful celebration.
The one. What is it called? The one what?
The one big beautiful bill.
The one big beautiful bill.
Now, several of the things that are in the bill currently, the House passed version plus what's currently in the Senate version, are things that Trump campaigned on. One of them being no tax on tips. It sounds silly, but that was something that some people in, like, let's say, the restaurant hospitality industry did vote for Trump about because they only get a couple of bucks an hour when you're a waiter. And the fact that you're not going to be taxed on your tips.
You mean from the restaurant itself?
Yes. So I've
never understood that you don't have to pay waiters. They're called servers today, right? Mm-hmm. Used to be called waiters and waitresses a long time ago, servers. You don't have to pay them. I never understood why you didn't have to pay them as a restaurant minimum wage.
Right.
I think the restaurant industry argued successfully that they make up for The restaurants don't have to pay the minimum wage, and their argument is that they make a whole lot off of tips. That's been the argument.
Well, the debate about a minimum wage or not, notwithstanding, or withstanding, I'm not sure what I'm trying to say there. Put that to the side. That's what I'm trying to say. I've always thought you should pay your employees a minimum wage, and then tips are on top of that.
Right.
That's what. That's what I always. What if you did that with every industry? What if the person who works at the gas station just started taking tips instead of you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh, please tip here. Of course you do. We as Americans now are asked to tip on every single thing. What gets me is now at the restaurants when you pay at the register instead of paying at the table. You pay at you order your food and you pay, and then you go sit down, you get your number, and they bring your food to your table. But like last night, this happened to us. We went to a restaurant, and I'm not faulting the lady. She took our order, and it's very friendly and nice. She took our order and everything. Then she takes a credit card, and I do the tap on the credit card, and then she turns the screen around in my face. And she says, when you fill out this, then that'll be the end of the order. And so she's like 2 feet away from me with her eyes glaring at me. And it says, it starts at 15%, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
I think it starts at 15% tip, 15, 20, 50, 75. I don't know what I'm exaggerating. I think it's 10, 15, 20, and then I don't know. 30 or something. We all know what I'm talking about, right? So it's that moment where you're going like, I think I don't want to go 10. That's like cheap. That's like I might as well not even tip at all. And I don't want to go 30. Good grief. That's another 30%. So I'll try to split the difference and go. I usually go 15 or 20. Usually 20. So that when she flips it back around, does she see it? Do they see it when you flip it back?
Yeah.
Or they're watching?
Oh, yeah.
Huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm a little worried if you don't tip, they might do something to that pizza.
Yeah. I'll be right back with your food.
Put something in that you don't want. If you don't give a tip, you can see. Anyway.
It's kind of extortion now. It really is. I mean, they're there, and you're right, 15, 20.
Starts at 15, I think. Which is fine. I usually do 20.
They kind of guilt trip. Not that I don't mind tipping.
Right, sure.
But now it's become this.
No, this is tipping ahead of time. Used to be you get your service. They bring your drinks. Make sure you got all you need, everything you need. They check on you 2 or 3 times during your meal, and then you tip them at the end.
Yeah.
Now it's pre-tip, a tip before you ever even just for getting your food.
Oh yeah,
it's a tip.
Yes, that's all.
I think you're tipping the cooks though and stuff like that. Maybe I'm guessing.
Some places still pool tips. In other words, whatever you might tip your server, he or she has to share with other people.
That's communism right there. I told somebody that they had the jar.
Yeah.
They had the jar at this restaurant I went to, and I said, "What is this? This is for tips." I said, "Well, how do you decide who gets it?" "Well, we all share it." What if somebody's busting their rear end and another person's playing solitaire? Who gets the tip? Well, they all still get the tip.
Yeah.
Now, most of the time, that's not the case. Everybody works fairly. I thought I didn't like that idea of a communal tipping jar. And also, I think it cuts down on the tips that you would get, because if you just think, well, I got great service from my server, and I want to tip them 20%, but I don't want to put it in a communal jar, tipping jar. I want to give it to them.
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess you could still do that if you wanted to. But all right, we're going to take a short time out right here. We would appreciate it if you would tip us. So if you want to tip, but are you saying that? No taxation on tips, or they're going to reduce it?
No tax on tips.
That's in the latest
It's in
version?
the Senate version that's currently being argued right now, yes.
Yeah.
No taxation on tips. All right, we'll be back in a minute. Stay with us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
On November the 19th, 1863, two men were speakers at the dedication of a soldier's cemetery on a famous battlefield in Pennsylvania. One of the men who was to speak was the main speaker for the day, and the other had only a few words to say. The man who spoke first, the featured speaker, spoke for a full 2 hours. The other gentleman said what he had to say in 3 minutes and used only 219 words to say it. 2 years later, both of these men were dead. The featured speaker died as a result of natural causes. The man who had only a few words to say died as a result of an assassin's bullet. Very few people have ever heard any part of the featured speaker's address, yet nearly every school child in America has learned by heart the words of the second speaker. I guess as one looks back at the thing, that how much one says isn't all that important. Now, you preachers and politicians, you need to take note of what I'm saying. One is left with a firm impression that what matters most is what one says. In other words, it isn't quantity that counts in the long haul, but quality. And this principle could be applied not only to speeches, but more specifically to lives. Take the example of the life of Frederick William Robertson. Hardly a person there is who has studied at the job of being a minister who has not only heard of this man, but also studied his writings. He was the pastor of Holy Trinity Church in Brighton, England. He regularly preached to larger crowds than most preachers do today. His sermons have been preserved and printed, yet he died when he was only 37 years old. Or consider Nathan Hale. He was a school teacher prior to the Revolutionary War. Entering the service, he was commissioned a captain. He volunteered for spy duty behind the lines of the enemy, knowing the penalty should he be captured. He was captured and was hanged the next day. The enemy refused his request for a Bible and the services of a minister. Yet he died only after saying that he regretted that he had only one life to give for his country. He was dead at the age of 21. There was another who lived only a short time. He was a carpenter until he was about 30, and then turned to preaching. His ministry was extremely short, covering a period of approximately 3 years. He enjoyed moments of popularity and acceptance as a minister and a pastor and a preacher, but was eventually rejected and put to death as a criminal and enemy of the state. His name was Jesus of Nazareth. He died at the age of 33. The two men who spoke at Gettysburg that day in 1863 were Edward Everett and Abraham Lincoln. I don't have to tell you which man's speech is remembered, because most of us know the Gettysburg Address.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
This only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. Psalm 27, verse 4.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Fred, Chris, and we thank you for listening to AFR. Joining us in studio is Steve Crampton. Steve, good morning, Brother Steve.
Good morning. Great to be with you.
Steve is an attorney with the Thomas More Society, and he also does some work for us here at AFA. And he's done First Amendment constitutional law for, 30 years or so?
Exactly right.
Something
a little over
like
that. Yeah.
So let me ask you, Steve, I asked you to come in and give us a report on the Supreme Court's decisions that were announced last week, because these were some big ones. Of course, I guess all Supreme Court decisions are big ones, but these were some good ones too. There were some good ones too. Would you review some of those, if you would?
Yes, Tim. Thanks again for having me on. You know, the practice of the Supreme Court.
I'm not going to tip you, by the way. We'll just get that out. Get out that out of the way now. Are we good on that?
I'm shocked, actually,
okay.
but I'll
I don't know
live
if lawyers
with it.
get tipped or not, but we're not going to do that today. Go ahead.
You are familiar enough with the Supreme Court practice to know that it's almost always in the last 30 plus years that it's the last week of the term that the really monumental...
They save the juicy ones for last.
The juicy ones that tend to have much more dispute with the among the justices and so forth. And this year was no exception. We had the birthright citizenship case where the... Technically, the issue was whether birthright citizenship is, as President Trump has basically reinterpreted or interpreted it via the executive order, or if it's more like it had been treated by the leftist kind of Obama interpretations, where if you just basically cross the border and give birth, then automatic citizenship attaches. But the court actually did not decide that ultimate issue, right? And so what we had instead was a ruling that was monumental with its effect by virtue of the fact that the court definitively, I would say, held that nationwide injunctions are off the table beyond the authority of the district courts.
I'm clapping. We are clapping.
And as we all know, that has been the tool of lawfare leftist attempts to derail President Trump and the new presidential administration and their agenda. So that is absolutely huge in and of itself. So the birthright citizenship, as I say, the ultimate merits of that will be decided later.
Right. So let me ask you this about this. So this has bothered a lot of people. I mean, especially conservatives, because you go, this is overreach by you're telling me that one federal judge somewhere in America can issue a national injunction on a law or an executive order. Now they can issue. Here's what would you agree with me? They can issue an injunction that applies to their jurisdiction.
Of course.
Yes, their jurisdiction. But then that's the reason you have other federal judges who are overseeing other parts of the country. They can do the same thing if they want to.
Very good, right?
But to have one federal judge, be able to issue a national injunction, basically that judge becomes king.
It's exactly right, Tim. It is the imperial judiciary, isn't it?
Yes.
One judge could issue that ruling that binds every single American, or even the non-citizens who are present. Even the president, under the power of the executive order, can only bind those who are in the executive department. So really, that single district, unelected district court judge becomes more powerful than the president.
But the good news is the Supreme Court ruled in a 6-3 decision that is not constitutional.
Correct.
Okay, so that's good news.
That is huge.
Huge.
Really good news.
Okay, what other decisions?
May I say it in Trumpian terms?
Yes,
it's
please.
huge. That was huge.
I would say it's beautiful.
It is
It's one beautiful ruling.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Another really big case was Mahmoud against Taylor. Out of
sounds like a prize fight.
I know, right?
Mahmoud in one quarter.
The infamous Montgomery County, Maryland.
Okay.
Yes.
Which has been just a hotbed of leftist initiatives, especially in the school system, right? So in this case, the school board, in its infinite wisdom, adopted a rule and a policy of implementing pro-LGBTQ books in their curriculum. Now, this is a classic case, too, I think, of a Trojan horse sort of undertaking. When it was adopted, they assured the parents and everybody that was concerned, we have an opt-out provision. If you don't like and you don't want your children reading this book, by golly, you just stay away. Well, a year or so down the road, guess what? too many were opting out.
Yeah.
And so the school board reverses policy. Now they've got the curriculum in, and they say, thou shalt read it, no opt-outs.
Oh.
How about that, right?
Little bait and switch there.
Little bait and switch there. And so we've seen this for decades, too, where we have struggled against the power of the school boards to impose really propaganda and indoctrination
That's nothing
on
to
our
do
children.
with reading, writing, or
Nothing
arithmetic.
to do. And so this group of parents, and so the reason that you've got Mahmoud leading on the plaintiffs, the lead plaintiff, is because this was a coalition. Muslims, Orthodox, Jews, Christians put together as a very well planned out lawsuit, all of which came forward and said, no, this is an erosion of our free exercise rights, our parental rights.
Yeah.
And again, the court, in another 6-3 decision, said that's exactly right. And this opinion, written by Justice Alito, I think, has almost dedicated his career to championing a reinvigoration of the First Amendment, fundamental First Amendment rights of parents and others under the free exercise.
Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas, they both need to be on Mount Rushmore of Supreme Court justices, and they're
really
serving
think so.
together. It's kind of like having Willie Mays and Hank Aaron
That's
on
right.
the same team.
Right.
These guys are just incredible, and I hope they can stay another 5 years, although they're in their 70s, right?
And the rumors have been rampant that they both are interested in retiring.
Well,
so
now
pray
would,
for them.
now would be the time to go because of President Trump, a Republican, is in the White House, and the Republicans have 53-40. You're not going to get any better than that.
And that's the logic.
Yeah.
On the other hand, are you ever going to get another Samuel Alito or Clarence Thomas? I mean,
I
and
hope
these
so.
guys, for their years of experience and working inside the court, they have achieved a degree of gravitas that I'm not sure a new associate justice would attain.
One other question: were there any more rulings last week? That
Oh
got
yeah,
your
there were
attention?
several. One of them, let me just say briefly,
And then
was
Fred, jump in here.
the appointments clause case, right?
What is that?
Sounds a little bit like this is the clause that basically you're dealing with when nominating new Supreme Court justices, for instance, right? Article 2, Section 2 gives the United States president the power of appointment, right? With superior principal offices, they must be confirmed with the advice and consent of the Senate. Inferior appointments do not. So this case involved, basically, to get way into the weeds, it's a department within the Health and Human Services that oversees some of the recommendations regarding policies dealing with food and so forth. And what you have is some of these guys were fired. It's another lawfare case, in effect, right? Challenging the president's authority again and again, the power of the executive to control who in the world is working in the executive department. And again, the court comes down and says these were inferior officers, not principal officers. They did not need to go through the Senate and so forth. And so this is a reaffirmation of presidential and executive authority that, again, was, I think, a dead right ruling. So in this case, however, there was the twist. Normally, the three dissenters, can you name them? Fred can name them, right? It's the leftists.
Yes.
Ketanji Brown Jackson, Sonia Sotomayor, and Elena Kagan.
The ones that rule off feelings.
Exactly. In this case, you had Justice Thomas and Gorsuch in the dissent. So it's a little different dynamic, but I think the result came out correctly. And, the court, for all the criticism, and I've been among those that criticize it, for one, they're just timid to take these cases. In this case, once they finally got to the decision-making, I think they did the right thing. And so kudos to President Trump for appointing 3 justices that ruled correctly in these cases. And long-term, I think the country's going to be much better off.
I want to go back to the Maryland case. The parental rights issue is nationwide.
Yes.
This was Montgomery County, as you pointed out. How important do you think it was that it was a coalition? That it was a coalition of Muslim parents, Jewish parents, Christian parents?
Hugely so. Sadly, it shouldn't be, as you know, Fred. The merits are the merits, regardless who brings the case. But look, AFA has been party to cases where it was only our kind of people that were the plaintiffs. And when the court sees that, and of course the press and everybody else comes in and tries to undermine the case, they can do it without any real pushback. When you get a coalition like this, it's much more difficult.
One other question. The Supreme Court, didn't they rule something about states being able to
Oh, yes. Yes.
Stop abortion with tax dollars?
Medina v. Planned Parenthood.
Medina, yes.
Sorry,
absolutely.
For those who don't know, what are we talking about here?
We are talking about the provision of subsidies to usually low-income folks, and Planned Parenthood, of course, has had a huge role in really monopolizing the take of the federal dollars under those rules. States like, in this case, South Carolina, said, wait a minute, we're a participant in this process as well. We have rights, and we say no to the folks like Planned Parenthood that are really abortion providers and so forth. This isn't really medical assistance that you're giving. And several other states have undertaken this.
Right.
In this case, the Supremes decided to review the matter and decide states' rights versus federal rights. You know, another big constitutional kind of issue.
They did or didn't decide?
They did decide.
They
that
decided
the
in favor of the states
have the right. That's exactly right.
Again,
huge win. That's exactly
great news.
Right.
That so the Supreme Court. Wow, you're talking about a bunch of wins here. 6-3, 7-2. But the decision was that so if pro-life states want to say no to paying using federal tax, they don't want to be told that if they get money from the federal government, which all states do, that they then have to pay for abortions with that money.
That is right.
And many states, this initiated in South Carolina, said, no, we're not going to do that. And the Supreme Court says that the state of South Carolina and other states have the right to not pay for abortions, right?
Yes, and so some of our folks are working right now, Jamison Taylor, to put this blueprint in front of every other red state to begin with and just say, get this passed right away.
Right. Yeah. Well, this is, listen, you might say, well, how did this all happen? To what do we attribute this? I'll tell you, for the most part, you can attribute this to Donald Trump beating Hillary Clinton. You have to go back to 2016 because then candidate Trump, you remember, he made a commitment to appoint pro-life judges to the really, he was making a commitment to appoint constitutional judges, those who follow the Constitution. It wasn't just a one-issue thing. But President Trump made a commitment. Now, President Trump, so the fact that he was able to defeat Hillary Clinton, of course, we know how narrow a margin that was. He lost the popular vote, but he won the Electoral College vote. That saved the Supreme Court. Okay, from a complete, total takeover by the far lefties. No telling what our country would look like right now had he not beaten her.
Yes.
Okay, so I know at the time a lot of Christians were going. Christians are a large voting bloc.
I was among them.
Okay, and
we were this guy?
Yeah, I know. We were going like this New York Playboy billionaire ain't one of us. Okay, so I don't know what we're gonna get here, but we're going to go with it, okay? And President Trump was championing a lot of other issues that was appealing to conservative voters.
Yes.
So, President Trump followed his commitment.
Not his heart. He followed his commitment.
He followed his commitment to appoint judges, the best that he knew how, that follow the Constitution. He was relying on the Federalist Society.
Correct.
For the recommendations, because he didn't know what he was doing that much. And he admitted that. President Trump did. He said, I'm going with the ones that Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society said were good to appoint. So anyway, I just wanted to go back to that moment in time in 2016 and say, if you voted for President Trump now, then you can pat yourself on the back because he won. And we were able to get to the kind of decisions that Steve's just reported on the last 15 minutes.
May I say in that context too, Tim, I think that's exactly right. He was transparent right? And today that's the term he's using in describing his administration.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is he really has been. I mean, it's a phenomenal thing. He put the list out there, told us, here are the 11
Nobody
top
does
choices.
that.
It's
he put the list of judges he would appoint prior to being elected.
Exactly. And he delivered
on
that promise.
I
mean,
agree.
It was phenomenal.
Listen, nothing but applause for President Trump in his first 4 years and appointing federal judges to the Supreme Court. And so I haven't heard much about his appointments this time. Of course, he's only been in office 6 months, but
he's just getting rolling on those.
Yeah, I know that we here at American Family Association are doing our part behind the scenes to influence his decisions on who he picks.
Yeah.
To be a federal judge or to be a Supreme Court justice.
That's exactly right.
All right. Well, listen, Steve, thanks so much for that. Yeah. That's good news, man.
It's tremendous.
Yes.
Fred's going to tip you. Okay. So if you would just take your screen over there and sit beside him, and
it's all in Canadian dollars.
And what you need to do, let me just tell you how this works. Start with 25%, and then have a 25% box, a 50% box, and a 100% box.
Let me take notes. Hold on, let me write this down.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Steve Crampton joining us. You're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. All right, Chris, what's next?
One other Supreme Court ruling to go over is a case called Free Speech Coalition v. Paxton, and this is a ruling last week where justices ruled in favor of Texas and its age verification law for pornography websites.
Yeah. So hang on, Steve. I didn't realize Chris was going to bring this up, and I'm glad you did.
Got to increase the tip, I'm just saying.
Yeah, got to increase. So let me just say, that, so states... some states, including this was Texas, and other states did this too, said if you're going to go for pornographic websites, you're going to have to verify your age.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Just like you do to get a driver's license or to get alcohol or get tobacco. The states, in this case again Texas, deemed it that this kind of material should not be accessed by anyone under 18 years old. I guess it's 18 years old.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so people on the left argue, no, this is a violation of free speech.
Yes, and here's the argument. I mean, listen, they are as clever as they can be. Notice again the name of the case, Free Speech Coalition. Who's against free speech?
Right. I know. So,
that's the left, another Trojan horse kind of image, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they come in and they say, wait a minute, if you're going to require this age verification and so forth, you're infringing the rights of adults who have a right to access this because it's protected by free speech, which in itself, by the way, is a ruling that needs to be revisited, right? But we're not there. That's the one sad footnote in this case that I would add is no justice, including Justices Alito and Thomas, even footnoted and said, we dispute that this material is protected by the First Amendment at all. It shouldn't be, right? That aside, they correctly upheld the right of a state. It just seems like a no-brainer to most of us, doesn't it? To prohibit and require that the providers of this material take the
verify that you're dealing with an adult.
Right. Yeah. Don't let children on there. Are you kidding me? You're fighting that? Yeah. And yet, you've got, again, the dissenters.
So the Supreme Court said, yes, states have a right to regulate obscenity or pornographic websites and prohibit minors from accessing them, at least as it relates to, you go on the internet.
Yes.
If you go to a pornography site now, you have to enter a government-issued ID to verify your age.
Something like that.
So anyway.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And that was after the Supreme Court upheld Tennessee's ban on the gender mutilation of minors, too. So
another huge win. I mean, they just keep coming, right?
Yeah. So anyway. All right. Again, this goes back to the election of 2016. We're reporting all these good news decisions by the Supreme Court. Had Hillary Clinton beat Donald Trump, we would be talking about the very opposite results here.
That's for sure.
May I just put a footnote in there, too? Isn't there a sense here for all of these decisions? At the end of the day, it just looks like common sense to most Americans.
I know.
We're just returning to common sense and sanity here.
Amen.
Right?
Yeah. I have one more question.
Yeah.
Now, you're going to have to speculate on this. Will Thomas retire while Trump is in office to give Trump an opportunity to get a conservative?
I'd say the odds are yes.
Okay.
Well, in addition to Steve answered, can I answer too?
Sure.
It's an added tip.
Yeah, add that tip. So the question is, when will Clarence Thomas do this? Because not only do you need a Republican in the White House, Donald Trump, you need a margin in the Senate to confirm.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I could be wrong. I just don't think it's going to get any larger than 53-47 for the Republicans.
But don't you think, y'all are the political observers, as the best I understand, the midterms looks like the Senate races will not change the majority. So he may buy another couple of years. Yeah.
Well, and Sir Clarence Thomas is looking at that too.
I think so.
And Samuel Alito, perhaps. Go ahead.
I have a question. Would you say that Justice Thomas is like the strongest in terms of gun rights when it comes to gun cases?
Probably, yes.
So with that said, it would seem to me that Trump really needs to, and perhaps groups that are coming up with lists for him to consider, they need a really staunch pro-Second Amendment guy to replace Thomas.
Agreed. And again, back to my comment earlier of the frustration of the timidity of the court. Chief Justice Roberts, really Justice Kavanaugh, Justice Barrett, they seem to want to just say, we're just not going to take these cases. And there are some bad lower court rulings on gun rights right now they could have taken, and again, they just turn away. So that whole coalition that's necessary just to have cert granted is a big deal.
I want to know when we're going to have an evangelical Christian on the Supreme Court.
It's been a minute.
We've got.
Have you been holding your breath?
We've got 5 Catholics, right? Something like that.
Maybe
we got
more.
a couple of Jews, an atheist, and a.
Back in the day with Ketanji Brown Jackson, there was the belief among evangelicals that she was actually an evangelical Christian.
What?
I'm thinking somebody missed the boat on that personally. That's just me, but
really,
I'm not kidding.
But what I'm saying, I don't have anything against. Listen, I'm not anti-Catholic by any means.
Understood.
We have a lot of Catholic listeners and supporters, so that's fine. I'm just saying, if we want to make the Supreme Court look like America, can we not have one evangelical on the Supreme Court out of 9?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do our people not go to law school?
Is this religious profiling, or what are you doing here?
Yeah, I'm trying to make, like I said, I'm trying to make
Liberty University is like, we have a law school, people. Yeah.
So I want to get back here to Jackson. Someone labeled her an evangelical Christian.
Someone
I
close
remember
to
when
us,
that,
as a matter
because
of
her
fact.
husband's some kind of evangelical.
I don't even know.
Hey, listen, when she failed on that question about defining a woman.
What is a woman?
What is a woman?
By the way, may I say in this is maybe getting again into the weeds, but part of the importance of AFA and others being involved early on in judicial nominations. When they moved Merrick Garland from his seat on the D.C. Court of Appeals to become Attorney General, there was a plan among the Obama wing of the Democrat Party to place Ketanji Brown Jackson in that seat, which they did, and then move her up to the high court, which they did. This was a 3-step, real clever move. And so if you're asleep at the wheel when they're nominating these lower court justices, you may be too late to weigh in at the Supreme Court.
Good
level.
point.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you all for having me.
That was great.
You're listening. So some big wins at the Supreme Court. And if you voted for Donald Trump in 2016 in his presidential race against Hillary Clinton, that is the reason we're reporting these good news stories about the Supreme Court that that we've just been reflecting on the last few minutes here.
Can you imagine, too, having conservatives on that Supreme Court are going to be needed if this Democrat who has been nominated to run for mayor in New York and what he wants to do there?
Yeah.
Perhaps we'll talk about that.
Yeah, they got... You got a far-left wackadoodle.
He's to the left of far-left socialists.
No, he makes AOC looks conservative.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Oh, yeah.
Alexandria
Ocasio-Cortez.
Yes, she's a rabid right-winger compared to this guy.
Wow.
Compared to this guy running for, who may win the mayoral office in New York City.
Yes.
All right, we'll be back momentarily with more of today's issues. Steve Paisley Jordahl will be in studio.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
All God asks of you is faithfulness. Headlines in USA Today, did you see it this morning? All the odds against us. Faithfulness is the word.
There's a place for you on the battle line. Engage in the fight for America's families. Visit afa.net and then take your position. A message from the American Family Association.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
This is American Family News. I'm Steve Jordahl. Canada is pulling back a tax aimed at U.S. technology firms, which was supposed to go into effect today. Fox's Peter Ducey has the details from the White House.
The Canadians blinked in the trade war with the U.S. after President Trump announced that he was going to suspend all trade talks with our neighbors to the north. They decided to turn off a new tax one day before it was set to come due. It is the digital services tax. It took effect in June of last year, and it requires some businesses to pay a 3% tax on revenue that they earn from engaging with Canadian users online. So that could affect companies like Amazon and Meta and Google and Apple.
The tax was due to hit companies with a 3% levy on revenue made from Canadian users. It was meant to apply retroactively, requiring businesses to pay taxes totaling approximately $2 billion. Senators are scheduled to start debate on President Trump's budget bill at this hour as lawmakers approach a July 4th deadline set by the president. Fox's Aisha Hasni has the latest from Capitol Hill.
It's going to be a very, very, very long day. This is going to be a very long, strenuous process here. But Republicans are inching very, very closely to getting this done and sending this big, beautiful bill over to the House, although it hasn't come without some spilled blood. Over the weekend, the Senate passed the big, beautiful bill, the House's version at least, 51-49, to begin debating this bill. And there were two defections on the Republican side. Two Republicans, Senator Rand Paul and Tom Tillis, voted no.
North Carolina Republican Senator Tom Tillis has noted he will not seek re-election after voting against the package. Democrats are set to propose amendments to the bill in a so-called Vote-a-Rama marathon session. Firefighters were ambushed by sniper fire while responding to a blaze in a northern Idaho mountain community Sunday, killing at least 2 people and unleashing barrages of gunfire over several hours in an attack the governor called heinous. The Kootenai County Sheriff's Office says crews responded to a fire at Canfield Mountain just north of Coeur d'Alene around 1:30 p.m. and gunshots were reported about half hour later. Sheriff Bob Norris says the 2 people killed were fire personnel. A third was in the hospital in critical but stable condition after receiving a gunshot wound. The Supreme Court has punted for now, but could take up the issue of President Trump's birthright citizenship executive order moving forward. AFN's Chad Groening has more.
In Friday's 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court ruled that the individual district judges lack the authority to grant the national injunctions that have been used to stymie President Trump's agenda. In a social media post, Attorney General Pam Bondi said, quote, "Today the Supreme Court instructed district courts to stop the endless barrage of nationwide injunctions against President Trump." Art Arthur is a resident fellow in law and policy at the Center for Immigration Studies.
This was a big victory for the Trump administration in implementing its immigration policies because in CASA versus Trump, the Supreme Court put an end to nationwide or universal injunctions under which a single district court judge could stymie entire swaths of policy determinations based simply on the argument of a single plaintiff or a handful of plaintiffs.
But Arthur says the High Court punted when it came to Trump's executive order regarding birthright citizenship.
The Supreme Court is allowing those arguments to play out at the lower courts, and those questions will eventually make their way to the Supreme Court. All that the Supreme Court did was say that those lower courts don't have the ability to issue one order that bars the Trump administration from attempting to implement the president's executive order that limits birthright citizenship.
I'm Chad Groening.
And finally, the world's nations are gathering in Spain for a high-level conference to tackle the growing gap between the rich and poor countries and drum up trillions of dollars needed to close it and redistribute the wealth. The U.S., previously a major contributor, has pulled its participation, so funding will be tough. The 4-day meeting started Monday in Seville. For American Family News, I'm Steve Jordan.
AFA Action takes attacks on the family seriously. The enemies of the family constantly employ new tactics to try to sneak past our radar. They know if we stand together, their evil plans will fail. Your gift to AFA Action allows us to stay vigilant against their onslaught. And if you give this month, you'll receive access to the Cultural Institute video When Your Faith is Illegal by Frank Harbor on AFA Stream as our thanks. You can make your gift today at afaaction.net.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. We're here every Monday through Friday. Friday, of course, we have Trivia Friday, but Monday through Thursday, we cover the news stories of the day and to try to put them in some perspective if we can. Here, I'm Tim with Fred and Tim Wildman, Fred Jackson. And now joining us in the studio is Steve Paisley Jordahl. Good morning, Brother Steve.
Good morning, everybody.
Who's not very Paisley today?
No, he's got the fishing shirt.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of fishing, but I'm doing a Rusty's job this morning. My alarm went off at 2:15 this morning, and so I am sleeping with the fishes as we sit here.
For those who can't see on our YouTube or our Facebook channel, Steve's got the shirt on with fishes.
Yes,
it's a fish shirt.
Fishes or fish? What's
today.
the plural of fish? Fish.
Fish.
Is it still so? Fishes don't even.
I know what you mean.
What about the with a parable of the
fish
loaf?
Yes.
Oh, they do say loaves.
The loaves
and fishes.
The loaves and fishes.
Don't we say fishes? We've always said fishes right there on the parables from the Bible, right? Loaves and fishes.
Yeah.
Is that appropriate?
I don't know. I never thought about that.
Or is that bad Hebrew? Or is that bad Greek, I should say?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a mystery. We'll have to solve that later.
We need Ray Pritchard.
We do.
There
need
you
Ray
go.
Pritchard.
That's what we need.
But all right. So, hey, before we get into what you have here, Steve, you and I and Fred were talking before we went on the air momentarily live. There's this mayoral race in New York City.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, most people would say, what do I care about that? I don't live there, and those people always vote far-left Democrats into office anyway. Well, that's not necessarily true. They did vote for Rudolph Giuliani.
Mm-hmm.
There have been Bloomberg. There have been examples of Republican mayors in New York City, but they're rare.
East Coast Republicans.
What now?
Which East Coast Republicans are a little different
yes, they're more liberal than Southern conservative Republicans, but nonetheless, you have. But in this case, they have a situation where a fella is running for mayor, and he might be elected, named Zoran
Mondani.
Mondani. I get the M's and the N's mixed up all the time.
Who is this guy?
He is a legislator. He's born in the Congo. I don't know if he emigrated here. He is an immigrant, legal, and is serving. He was or still is. He's going to be leaving his job as a legislator in New York. Been there for 3 years. Hasn't been really active. He calls himself a Democrat socialist. Many people would refer to him as a straight-up communist. Due to his proposals, he has won the Democrat nomination for the city of New York for the election upcoming.
Yeah, very interesting. On the weekend, he was interviewed at NBC, and he has said some outlandish things, like he wants to tax white people higher. He wants to start running government grocery stores. And one of the things he has said, He refuses to take back a statement he made about the globalization of Intifada. Now, Intifada basically killed the Jews.
Yep.
And he has refused. Even this weekend, he was interviewed by liberal NBC, and they challenged him on some of the controversial positions that he has taken. It's cut number 2, Brent.
So I want to give you an opportunity to respond here and now. Do you condemn that phrase, globalize the Intifada?
That's not language that I use. The language that I use and the language that I will continue to use to lead this city is that which speaks clearly to my intent, which is an intent grounded in a belief in universal human rights. And that includes Israelis and Palestinians alike.
Do you condemn that phrase, globalize the Intifada, which a lot of people hear as a call to violence against Jews?
I've heard from many Jewish New Yorkers who have shared their concerns with me, especially in light of the horrific attacks that we saw in Washington, D.C. and in Boulder, Colorado, about this moment of anti-Semitism in our country and in our city. And I've heard those fears and I've had those conversations. I don't believe that the role of the mayor is to police speech in the manner especially of that of Donald Trump, who has put one New Yorker in jail who's just returned to his family, Mahmoud Khalil, for that very supposed crime of speech.
Yeah, but throughout all of that, she pressed him. He refused to condemn that speech. He said, it's not my job to police that speech. This guy, his daddy, this is very interesting, is a professor at Columbia University who's extremely anti-Jewish. This guy, Zoran Mamdani, he also is an endorser of the boycott and divest when it comes to Jewish businesses, et cetera, et cetera. He makes the most liberal Democrat that you can think of, like a conservative.
He's to the left of AOC.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we won't go over the litany of things, but he's promising free stuff for everybody in New York.
Yes, and he's going to pay for it by taxing the rich. Where have you heard that
yeah,
before? And raising the corporate tax.
Taxing the rich, but they need to be rich white people, he said.
Yeah. And he doesn't believe in billionaires. You cannot be a billionaire and live here.
Well, I think the billionaires that are in New York are going to
head on down.
They're going to go to Florida or somewhere else. They're getting out of town. They're getting out of Dodge. Really, this guy is a physically speaking, he's a communist, okay?
That's what he is.
So he believes in promising everything for everybody, paying for everything, and he's going to get that money by taxing the white rich people. I'm not making this up. He did say white rich people, didn't he?
Yep. Oh, I could not believe in New York, which has just seen some of the biggest anti-Jewish, anti-Israel protests on the campuses like Columbia. And yet they turn around and they vote for this guy.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. Now, he hasn't been elected yet. There's a general election in November. It'll be him as the Democrat nominee and probably the current mayor, what's the fellow's name?
Eric Adams.
Eric Adams, who's not running as a Democrat because I don't know why. He's been in some scandal attached to his campaign. Or his office, right?
He's been quite ineffective in most places. I think the scandal might be the former governor Cuomo of New York, who also is rumored to be running as an independent, and he has had some scandal attached to his campaign. I'm not sure about. There may be scandal attached to the.
Oh, there has been because Trump pardoned him.
Pardoned Eric Adams?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, what happened is that Eric Adams...
The feds went after him.
Yeah, Eric Adams agreed to work with Homeland Security to arrest the bad illegal immigrants.
Well, he was also criticizing Biden for letting all these people flood into his city in New York City illegally.
Yes.
And it's about that time that the feds started going after him.
Yep.
On charges. And Trump came in and said, hey, they're doing the same thing to you that they did to me, that you're being persecuted for your political statements and beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to pardon you. So he pardoned him. It may have been a preemptive pardon. I don't know if he ever went to trial. I've forgotten about that. But anyway, we'll see what happens in New York City. Who's elected? Cuomo, the former governor, course, when you say New York City, you almost got to say corrupt.
Right up there with Chicago.
It's like these big cities. Who isn't corrupt running for office? But we'll see who wins that in New York. But you're right. There's more. Some people say there's more Jews in New York than there are in Israel. I don't know if that's true or not, but New York City's got more Jewish people than
I think I heard that New York City has more Jews than any other city in the world. There's not as many as in Israel in total, but more than there are in Tel Aviv, more than there are.
Right. Miami,
by the way,
too. Miami's a big place.
Just to conclude but just to finish the list of candidates, Curtis Sliwa is the Republican candidate. He is a Republican candidate. You would know him if you knew him at all as the founder of the Guardian Angels.
He's the one that wears the
beret, the little red beret.
What does the Guardian Angels do?
They're a neighborhood watch kind of thing where
they really took off when the violence in the subways in New York, and that they part of their group is to go down and be in the subway areas to protect
They're not police
people.
officers.
They're not police officers, but they're there to curb crime, and the subway crime has been a big issue for them.
Okay. All right, what's your story?
Well, let me do this. I have a story that's kind of related to the New York, what we were just talking about. But first, I want to do some breaking news. They have identified the suspect in the Idaho shooting. This is the sniper shooting of firefighters that were called out to a wildfire in Idaho, in Coeur d'Alene, near Coeur d'Alene. He has been identified as 20-year-old Wes Rowley, R-O-L-E-Y, from Arizona. And that's as far as I can confirm. Now, we have Grok, or the AI, has culled some other information which possibly is true. I'm going to say this. I'll put the little asterisk next to it. This hasn't been confirmed, but it is. I do believe it could be true. He worked at his father's tree farm near Canfield Mountain, where the fire was set. Rowley alleged to set a wildfire to ambush firefighters. We do know that. He killed 2 and injured 1. We do know that. His motive is unknown. Investigations are continuing. Unverified claims about political affiliation lack credible support. Rowley was found near a firearm with the cause of death unclear. Not sure if he shot himself or was killed by police.
So that's all we know right now.
That's all we know. We do have a name. And
he's 20 years old?
20 years old. This has been a story now. It's getting close to 24 hours. And in my experience, this is a little slow for the rollout of information, but these days not so much, I guess. Always, whenever you have a breaking news story like this, you're going to hear some things and it changes. It's not malicious on the count of news people. It's just they try to give you the best information they know, but it takes a while to do an investigation and learn motives and all that kind of stuff. Everybody wants to know now, but it's impossible to know now. Kind of like the damage assessment of nuclear power plants in Iran. You can't really know right away.
Well, we'll wait to see what happens. There are people in this world who are just mentally ill.
Yep.
Are just in modern common vernacular, they're just nutso, and I don't know. This guy may have been just a nut job. You know, he didn't have to have his motivation is made up in his mind. I don't know. I better stop there. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but it was well planned.
Okay.
He starts the fire.
True. That's not insanity when you plan out something like that.
He has a gun. He starts the fire. He knows that's going to draw firefighters.
Yeah. Like I said, I've never in my life heard of a vendetta against firefighters.
No.
For any reason.
There's something
we don't know.
There to come.
Something we don't know yet. Yeah. All right. But you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to American Family Radio. Tim, Fred, and Steve. Continuing on, Steve.
All right. One of the things we do know about Mamdani is that he's Muslim. So New York City will be one of the first major American cities with a Muslim mayor. Now, this has happened.
If he's elected.
If he's elected. This is kind of been the trend in Great Britain, for example. And there's a lot of people concerned about it. I just want to play you 20 seconds of an ad that is a recruiting ad for British police. This is the British law enforcement agencies trying to recruit police officers in London. And here we go. This would be cut 13.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम, मैं साजन यूसुफ मेहदी पिछले 20 साल से मेट पुलिस का हिस्सा हूँ। मैंने अपनी शुरुआत रिस्पांस टीम के साथ की थी, उसके बाद ज्वाइन किया।
That's because that's in Arabic. They are now advertising for Muslim police officers in Muslim cities.
In London?
In England, but that's in London, yes. Related to this, so where does this take us here? The mayor of Minneapolis is a guy named Jacob Fry. And Minneapolis is known to have a large Somali community. Recently, they celebrated Somalia's Independence Day. I'm not sure. I mean, it's good that they can do that if they want, but this was Mayor Jacob Fry speaking to that crowd. Cut 15.
Somalia Hanulato! Somalia Hanulato! Somalia Hanulato! Somalia Igea! Somalia Igea! Somalia Igea! Amaga Igawa, Jacob Fry, Yarub! Doka Magalada, Minneapolis! Mufiatai!
What do you know? Jacob Fry speaks Somali. He's celebrating their Independence Day with them by celebrating in Somali. And by the way, the state of Minnesota recently changed their flag to mimic the Somali flag. This is not a coincidence, I don't think. I think we're trending the way England is trending in certain areas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, France is, 10 to 12% Muslim now.
Yep.
Western Europe is going to, if the trends continue, Western Europe will not look anything like it does historically in probably 30 years from now, because the combination of immigration from North Africa and from the Middle East into Europe, and you combine that with the native Europeans having a zero birth rate, basically.
Yeah,
you can see what happens in 2 or 3 decades. What's going to happen there?
Yep.
And so
there are sections, I think, in Britain, Liverpool. Very large Muslim population.
Birmingham, I'm told.
Birmingham, that's even more so. Paris, I remember back a few years ago, there were reports that for midday prayers, they shut down whole streets in Paris. The Muslim population is so big.
Yeah.
And local police basically have given over some areas.
Yeah, they're no-go zones.
Do what you want.
Yeah.
This is what I think it's important to remember about the Muslim immigrants, is that jihad, as we understand it, is a violent, you commit jihad, you're blowing things up, and that's how we understand jihad. But there is a version of jihad in the Muslim faith which is taking over a territory by things like birth rate or immigration. These people, when they come into these cities, are not trying in the least to assimilate into the American culture.
Yeah.
They're not interested in that. They're interested in setting up little Islamic cities, territories in the United States. It's known to be an Islamic doctrine that once a territory is in Islamic hands, they consider it Islamic for all eternity. So you can't, you don't get it back, at least from them, unless you take it by force.
Yeah. And that's why the concern has been raised about this proposed establishment, north of Dallas?
Yes, that city, what's it called? I'll have to look it up because, yes, there was a settlement north of Dallas that was being set up as a Muslim city. And let me.
You mean like Dearborn, Michigan, or this place in Minneapolis?
Like a whole community, even more so.
You mean to let them?
Basically, it would be
Put Sharia law in and stuff like that.
Well, no. The state is investigating the individuals and their plan to set up this community that would be basically an Islamic community.
Yeah.
So that's why the state
That's
of
not
Texas,
very American, is it?
The state
is supposed to be a melting pot.
Epic City Community. And the developers proposed it. It tied to the East Plano Islamic Center. The developers have complained that they are being bullied by multiple federal and state investigations because they're Muslim, but they want to set up a Muslim community with the Muslim. They do their own peace law enforcement.
Well, listen, I don't care about them having their own community, so to speak. A lot of communities do that. The Amish do it. People of like mind and like lifestyle often live in communities together. That's not unusual. But you're not going to be able to allow them to have their own, their own lawmaking that's outside the Constitution. I don't think nobody's suggesting that, right?
Well, that is
like Sharia law instead of U.S. law.
No,
that kind of thing.
The developers certainly aren't saying that, but there is concern when people say, "Okay, this particular group wants to set this up. They want to basically, it's run as an Islamic community." And that's why the state of Texas, and I think there is a federal investigation also.
The department has closed that, I'm reading.
Well, we'll see what happens there. Like I said, I don't have a problem with it as long as they don't start trying to impose Sharia law in replacement of U.S. law or state Texas law.
That kind of looks like the DEI programs of the day. They renamed them because they're illegal, but they still have them. So there are still enforcers within some of these communities that will take the women who don't dress properly aside and
30 lashes?
I don't know that they're beating them. Maybe they are. I don't know, but they are certainly enforcing Sharia law by as much as they can.
We got about a minute and a half left.
All right, I have a
any
challenge.
Good news? You got some good news?
I got a challenge.
Okay, challenge.
I got a challenge. This is a fitness challenge.
All right.
Go. So I tested myself the other day to see how many pull-ups I could do, getting my chin over a bar.
Right.
It was a resounding zero at this point because my shoulders don't do
that. At least
that.
you have a baseline now.
I do. I have a baseline. But if I wanted to get the world record, I could do 11,707 in a 24-hour period, and I would have the world record because that is the world record.
Who did that?
I'm just looking it up. I
have one question.
Yes.
Why would you want to do that?
That seems like you could kill
because it's
like
there.
It could kill you. To me, it'd be kind of counterproductive, wouldn't it? Do the 11,000 chin-ups. What are you talking about now?
Yeah. Pull-ups.
Pull-up on a bar?
Over a bar.
24 hours?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So you're going to have to give me a
Ron Cooper.
Ron Cooper? Ron?
Ron did it.
No kidding.
Yeah, Ron.
I would have never guessed it.
Well,
I saw him at McDonald's last week. He didn't look like he was ready to do that many pull-ups.
He doesn't look that big, but he's got the zero body fat.
Where does he live?
Where's
he from?
I'm looking here. Ron Cooper.
Yeah.
The video doesn't say. I'll look that up for you. Have it.
The next time you tell us about a world record, have the name of the person who did it, so we can verify that.
The pull-up champion. It's kind of the opposite of the hot dog king. They have that contest I think it's around July 4th.
Yeah, but I bet that guy's jaws can definitely do some damage here.
I have the same question. Why?
Why? I know. That's Joey Chestnut, right? Isn't that his name?
I think you're right.
I think that's the hot dog. The guy who July 4th, he'll eat all the hot dogs and win the record on how many hot dogs every year.
Yeah.
That's his claim to claim.
Yeah.
Claim to fame, whatever it is.
I like hot dogs, but not to make myself uncomfortable.
No. All right, thank you, Steve.
My pleasure.
Go do some chin-ups now. All right. We appreciate everybody listening to the program today, today's issues. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your Monday. Keep listening to AFR, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.
Hello, everybody. I'm Walker Wildman, Vice President here at American Family Association. Well, my brother Wesley and I were following in the footsteps of my dad, our dad, and my grandfather, Don Wildman, by leading tours